Hey there, everybody. Pallard here, bringing you the first, well, it's technically the second video if you don't count or if you count the introduction, but the first video of content for PlanetSide 2. This video is going to mainly be the dry stuff. That there's some setting options and everything that really can make your gameplay that much easier and more enjoyable in the long run by doing so. So that's what's mostly going to be covered by this video. I'm going off the perception that you've probably just been instant action dropped in, and so this would be kind of where the instant action put me, and we're going to go from there and see if we might be able to help cap this point here quick, though there was an NC Sun, or I'm sorry, a TR Sunday. Let's take a look around here. Where did that guy go? Heal him up. But anyway, so this video is going to mostly cover there's several options that really help, and then it's going to also go into understanding the map, the flow of battle. So the big thing that people that learn the learning curve of the game is there are no little instance maps. It's all one large continent, well, technically 3 large continents. And each continent, I can believe, have up to 700 or 650 players from each faction out of the 3 factions. So really, spatial awareness is a huge part of the game, and in order to handle spatial awareness, understanding your map helps quite a bit, knowing your dots and everything. I'm actually not going to wait this out. We're going to go ahead. So the first thing we're going to do, and this was actually covered in the training zone, if you paid attention, is we're going to redeploy back to the warp gate, just so we're in a safe zone as we move out. So I'm going to hit M, open up my map, and I'm going to click redeploy. You can also hit, I believe, U is a hotkey for that, and it's going to do this little countdown. Now, this is going to suicide me, but it's not a suicide that counts as a death. There's no counter marker on that, but it does take you back to a spawn point. Now, on the left here is all my different spawn options. So I can spawn at HVAR, Southgate Garrison, which looks to be this spot right here. Any of these green dots I can basically spawn at. There's no sunders up, so I can't show you one of them right away. But what I'm looking at is right here, the NC Warp Gate. This is where I'm going to spawn. Normally it's going to be the bottom option because you're probably pretty far away from it, but not always, but normally it's the bottom option. There is a little bit of information here you can notice, so right away let's just go over this. So these are our spawn options. These little icons here show what all can be done at that. So at this upper option we can change out our infantry loadouts. We can also spawn vehicles, ground vehicles. This one here we can change our infantry loadout, we can spawn ground vehicles, we can also spawn galaxies and liberators and mosquitoes. I'm sorry, we're playing NC right now, so reavers. ESFs are also known as. So these icons real quickly can tell you what it is you're going to be able to do at each base as you spawn there. We can also select which class we're going to spawn. Now let's go ahead and switch over to Light Assault, and we will deploy as Light Assault at the warp gate. So here we are back at the warp gate. This is the friendly safe zone. While here, nothing can really happen to you other than you can flip your aircraft or whatever and die that way. But for the most part, it's relatively safe. You see there's this big glowing biome sphere. This is a shield. Enemy vehicles cannot drive through this. Enemy infantry cannot drive through this. Enemy fire can't come through this. While you're in this, you're perfectly safe. This is basically the foothold for every faction on the continent. So I'm going to go ahead and reopen the map here. And each continent, there's actually 3 continents within the game. So right now we are on Indar. We are at the NC Warp Gate because we're playing NC, and this is our spawn room. Over here in the lower right-hand corner is the TR Warp Gate. And kind of upper center right here is the VS Warp Gate. We can also look at Amerish, where for Amerish, our warp gate is down here in the lower center, the VS is in the upper right, and the TR is in the upper left. Amerish, and then let's also go Esamir. Now these maps show, as you can tell, that they're color-coded. Right now on Esamir, we're getting dominated pretty bad. We only control 4 zones, and we are in the process of losing this barracks complex. If we mouse over it here, we can see right now in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the red TR bar is actually clicking up. It's increasing, so they have influence there. They're in the process of capturing it as this loops around. we just captured this zone. You can also see right now enemies detected 1 of 12, 1 to 12, allies 1 to 12. Gives you a general idea of just how many enemies are there. Let's try to find something a little more active. Go to Indar. So if we mouse over the Elatum Biolab, you'll see right now there's no allies, but there's 48 plus enemies. Right now, the TR and the VS are fighting over this. Now, the reason there's no allies in there fighting, you will notice there's this line network all around the map. Now, this is only on 2 of the 3 continents. It's on Indar and Esamir, not on Amrish. So initially when the game first launched, the whole map looked kind of like this for all 3 continents. There was nothing. And basically, as long as you had an adjoining place, you could cap a point. So right now, we could come out here and we could cap Rockside Outlook if we went over to Amrish. We could also cap this Tech Lab, Chimney Rock, which is actually in the process of being captured. As long as there's one adjoining hex, you can go ahead and capture it. This was nice tactics-wise. It allowed for commanders to really do flanking maneuvers and everything. But what it caused with the problem was there was no way of controlling the flow of battle. And the bonus of PlanetSide 2 is the really big battles. So what would happen with this older style map, you would have one army of like 120 VS, and they'd be capping this way, while one army of like 100 NC would be capping this way, and they would avoid each other, just because they didn't want to get bogged down in a big battle. Well, they've now introduced, well, they've kind of brought it in from the first PlanetSide, the, what do they call this? The Lattice system. So now, on these other 2 maps, you actually have to follow. If you don't have a influence line to a point, you can't cap it. So, for example, right now we are in the process of capping Indar Excavation. If somehow the VS would back cap us and capture Quartz, we would not be able to capture this point. Until we capture Indar Excavation, we cannot capture Core Medlabs or Hylos Solar, and so forth. It's pretty easy to understand, but when you're moving around and if you're in charge of command or something, you have to take into account these lines. I've more than a few times taken units to a point to cap it, not to have influence, because I started playing them originally back in the pre-Laz days, and it's taken me a little bit to adapt over. So that's what's going on with the map. Now, the continents, as you can see, as we can drop through here, there is an icon right now. Currently on this server, Amrish and Esamir are controlled by the TR, which means they are getting a bonus because they were the last ones to completely conquer it. By completely conquer it, that means they warp gated, basically had controlled every zone but the warp gate and these 2 right here. And they controlled down here to this, but this warp gate and these 2 right here. So they had the complete control of the map. They now have a 10% resource purchase for aerospace. They also, from controlling Esamir, have mechanized. So we'll get into it once we start spawning vehicles and stuff. They cost a certain amount of resources. Theirs are reduced by 10% for those. Indar is currently controlled by the VS, and they have a 10% infantry reduction. NC's not doing all that well. They haven't taken control of anything in some time. So that's a quick rundown of the map. Now, the first thing we want to get into is a little thing that I find very helpful. I don't tend to play VS or NC or VS all that much. I tend to play TR. And I had a real tough learning curve where as TR, you're red, so your friendlies were red, and it would always confuse me. You would see red, and you normally would shoot and everything. Inside here, you can actually change out the different colors to match certain things. For example, right now, I can have all enemies set to red, allies set to blue, and this. So this is actually, if we switch it up, right now, this is the VS color, the NC color, the TR color. For NC, that works pretty well. You know, if you see purple or red to shoot at it. But I kind of like this standard default where I want everybody to be red, so I know they're fighting them. I'm fighting them. Depending on your class, depending on how you play, this may be something you want to change. You know, if you're VS, you may want to tell it, hey, I want the NC to be red and I want the TR to be red. If you're TR, you might say, I want friendlies to be blue and enemies to all be red and everything, just so you can understand a little bit easier. Something else that I really would recommend is the centralized hood mode. So right now, if you look at the hood, lower right-hand corner is where my jump jets are and my ammo and my grenade counter. If we come back in here and turn the centralized hood on and go back, it's now actually located around my reticle. So as I aim and shoot, that right yellow bar is actually my ammo count. If I use my jump jets a little bit, that left bar is my jump jets. And if I would take damage, I can't really do it here. There's health bars underneath my reticle. I like this, just you don't have to look into that lower right-hand corner. You do have at the very bottom of the screen there a constant for your jump jets and your grenade, which is also nice. I just prefer the centralized HUD. So, as I said, this is the warp gate. They did go briefly into it, what's going on with these terminals, but let's break this down a little bit more. First off, this terminal here is how we're going to go ahead and get between continents. Like I said, there's 3 different continents. We can see the maps there, but how do you get from one to the other? That is, these terminals with the globe on them. They're pretty much in the center of all the warp gates. They're the middle 2 terminals. You just come in here and you say you want to go over to Esamir, boom, click there, and you're gone. There is also a VR training room. Let's go ahead and go over there real quick. Inside the VR training room, this is a good place for new players to start out. You can come in here and you have different targets set up all around that you can use. Also, while you're in here, all weapons are unlocked. So you see, we can come in here if we want to try this GDF-7. We can go ahead and we just equip it without purchasing it with certs or anything. Let's throw a flash suppressor on there for grip, some soft point ammo, equip, and now we have a weapon with a scope that we can go ahead and we can use. Now, as soon as you leave this room, you're going to go ahead and you're going to default back to the other weapon, but this is a great way to try out the different weapons that are on. What you'll see a lot of people do is if we go ahead and we hit M, down here in the lower right-hand corner is the depot. There's sales. These sales can be on weapons. So you'll see people come in here, and actually the member sale right now is a shotgun for the max. You'll see people come in and they'll try out whatever weapon's on sale, see if they like it or not before they purchase it. It's a very good thing. There's also, if we fly over this way, there are enemy vehicles located around. So out here is TR vehicles, TR infantry. There's some VS infantry, there's some NC friendlies, and so forth. We can also come down to this end, and we can spawn vehicles. In fact, you can see a friendly Liberator taking off there, friendly Reaver flying around. Run down here. Down here are vehicle terminals. This part will actually look a lot like the warp gate. And just for comparison, we'll actually go back to the warp gate real quick. But this VR training room is really good for quickly learning if you want to test out weapons and everything. If you want to practice your flying skills, you want to practice shooting and everything, this is where you want to go. Let's go ahead and go back to the warp gate at Indar. Loading, loading, loading. You'll notice over here, once we run through this door, this looks a lot like the area we just saw in the training room. There's vehicle terminals, there's aircraft terminals, and galaxy terminals. But let's take this a little slowly. We already saw in the tutorial, here are the infantry. These are pretty straightforward. They show a gun, they show a rifle. You go to them if you want to change out your loadouts in any way or so forth. I will go into the loadouts a bit more later on with some other videos, but for now, that's where that's done. These terminals are where you spawn your Flash, any of the Harasser, the Sunder, the Lightning, or the Vanguard. So basically you go from the lightest vehicle to the heaviest vehicle with maybe a little bit change out here. The Sunderer actually has a little more armor than the Lightning, but has less firepower. The Sunderer is kind of the workhorse of all 3 factions. This is the guy that can be a mobile spawn point. It's also a troop transport. It'll carry up to 8 people. Come over here to this next set of terminals. These are the attack aircraft. So this is the one-person ESF, Empire Specific Fighter. This is the Reaver. This is the Liberator, so this is the 3-person bomber. So you got the pilot up here, you got a belly gunner running the shredder, and then you have a tail gunner for anti-air that can keep it off. This can also be set up with a grenade launcher or whatever for anti-ground. So this is kind of the AC-130 of PlanetSide 2. Lastly, you have the Galaxy. This is the aircraft troop transport. This will carry 12 soldiers. There's actually 4 weapons. So you got the pilot, a top turret, a turret on each wing, and then another rear turret. So they can have 4 gunners on it. This can also be equipped as an AC-130. The only problem with this is there's no belly gun, so you have to fly kind of on an angle, and then you can kind of get one wing and the tail, maybe a little bit of the top, but the other wing's up in the air. It's not the ideal gunship, but this thing does have a lot of survivability compared to the other aircraft. Let me see if there's any gals taking off right now. There's a flash leaving. No. So that's your primary terminals and so forth. I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to wrap it up there. You can see you get to the warp gate. This is where you can go ahead and you can check your map, safe place, figure out where you want to go in combat, and go ahead, get into combat between the different continents and so forth. So this has been Paler. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful, and I'll be back with some more videos. Thank you.